then either. Which kind of brings me to the next fight, which is Nick Diaz and GSP, which in itself is a super fight, basically, because you're bringing over the Strikeforce welterweight champ, taking on the UFC welterweight champ. And honestly, the only reason why that this fight is happening, in my personal opinion, is because the fans have asked for it. And they were pushing, and they were pushing, and they were pushing. And I think Dana, instead of letting Nick go and do his little boxing thing, I think he gave him this fight. And I personally think that this fight makes no sense. And I think that it's a really bad move for Nick Diaz's career. In my opinion, I think that Diaz should have gotten maybe someone like Fitch first, or even though John Fitch says he'll only fight Penn or GSP. But I think Diaz should have gotten someone like, John Fitch or a top 5 welterweight of some sort. Because, I mean, you bring Diaz over, GSP runs through him. Where does that leave Nick Diaz? What it does is it downgrades your Strikeforce champion, and it downgrades your complete brand of Strikeforce. Basically saying that your welterweight champion is not as good as the UFC's welterweight champion, so you're a scrub promotion. That may be a little harsh in saying it, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on Diaz and GSP?
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one.
Okay.
I think this fight is good. It's good for basically this is how it's going down. Nick Diaz is now a signed UFC fighter. He's got a UFC contract, and he basically has given up the Strikeforce title. It's from my understanding of things. Now, I could be wrong, and I think Strikeforce, their website still has him listed as their champion and everything. But I think this is the detail I think that is kind of the actions of how this fight has come along. But either way, I think the fight, it makes sense. It's good for the fact that Georges St. Pierre will get tested by a quality striker and not a guy like Jake Shields or John Fitch. The only striker he's really fought in over the past few years that's been of any quality has been really Thiago Alves. And I mean, BJ Penn's a striker, but I mean, Thiago Alves is like top-notch, high-quality kind of striker. But I think Nick Diaz brings in a lot of craziness. He brings a lot of trash talk, and he has proven over the last year or two that he can back it up. He's beaten some quality guys, not the levels of competition that Georges St. Pierre has been, mauling over the past few years. But I think the only thing that this could hurt would be Georges St. Pierre's legacy. And if Nick Diaz loses, then he's just another guy that lost to Georges St. Pierre. And then everybody will say, hey, everybody loses to Georges St. Pierre. And then Nick Diaz can just, then he can start fighting guys, like John Fitch or Carlos Condit or something, try to get back up to a title shot. If St. Pierre loses, we just have to hope that the fight was one of the most magnificent fights we've ever seen as fans. And that way, his legacy won't be hurt much. But if he gets subbed out in the first round, then it'll be kind of a waste. So I think this fight really is only dangerous to Georges St. Pierre. But I think as far as the fans go, like you said, the fans have wanted this fight for a long time, and they finally got it. I'm excited to see it, and I think I see more upside to this fight than Dan Henderson, Fedor Emelianenko.
Well, I definitely see more of an upside, basically for the fact that it is taking place at welterweight, not a fancy catchweight. It's actually for a title. And I believe that Nick Diaz's contract actually is going to permit him to go back and forth between Strikeforce and the UFC for as much longer as the Strikeforce is going to be around, because I can I'll 99% assure you that unless the UFC turns Strikeforce into some sort of a minor league promotion, that the minute that all of the contracts are up with fighters and Showtime, that they're going to swallow it, and there will no longer be a Strikeforce. Kind of like what they did with the WEC, where from 170 up, they swallowed all of those fighters and just left 155 down and kept the WEC until it was time to take all those guys.
Yeah, Strikeforce Challengers is pretty much the only thing that's going to be left over there. Yeah, Zuffa, they're going to hand the UFC everybody that Dana wants from Strikeforce when all this contract stuff is up.
Right. And and the thing with Diaz and GSP is this: is that the only problems that I see Diaz presenting for GSP is the fact that he's not going to let Georges St. Pierre sit back, okay? And he's not just going to let him. In the past few fights, I see GSP as more of a lay and pray, so to speak, a guy that's really good at keeping you from coming in at him. I think he is somewhat afraid of finishing fights. Don't get me wrong, I think he's one of the best in the world at 170. Actually, if not the best right now at 170. I don't really believe in pound-for-pound rankings and things like that, but he's the best welterweight in the world, hands down. But the last person that he really tried to go after was Matt Serra, and he got knocked out for it. Now, that's not saying that when they fought again that he didn't tap him out due to knees to the ribs. But I think that he was just trying to make a statement there. But I think that Nick Diaz is not going to let GSP sit back. I think he's going to attack him. I think he's going to put his hands behind his back and say, hit me, motherfucker. I think that he's going to try to get in his face, but I think he's going to pay dearly for it. So many people have said with so many of GSP's fights, oh, this guy presents real problems. He does this, he does that. Like, there was so much build-up for the Shields and GSP fight, and GSP literally made Jake Shields look like that he's not even a top 10 welterweight.
What's even worse about that fight is early in I can't remember if it was the first or second round, but he got popped in the eye with a knuckle or a Shields finger, and they literally, when they went to the end of the round and both men go to their corner, and you can kind of hear in like what the cornermen are saying. St. Pierre literally said, "I can't see." He was like, "I can't see out of my eye."
Right.
Like it was live. And his corner man looks at him and goes, "Can you see my left hand come in?" He goes, "A little bit." He goes, "Then don't get hit by it."
I know.
And then St. Pierre went back out there with one eye, basically, and he still continued to pound away on Jake Shields' face.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Jake Shields' striking is subpar compared to Nick Diaz. Know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
It's slow. He swings at like 20% of the speed. Jake Shields is most certainly a ground fighter, and that's the only place that he's ever going to win a fight is on the ground. But when you can't take somebody down, and you're not that good at standing, you're going to lose that fight. But that's like Nick Diaz too. I mean, Nick Diaz's hands are great. Are they boxing quality? No. But for mixed martial arts, sure, his striking is great. But if you watch how he strikes and the people that he's actually fought with, like Paul Daly, for instance, in his last fight, Paul Daly caught him, and he rocked him. And for a second there, for just a split second, I thought Paul Daly was going to win that fight, just because he caught him and he knocked him down and he hurt Diaz. Now, I can tell you right now that GSP's hands are probably twice as fast as Paul Daly's hands. And if Nick Diaz sits there and does his little pitter-patter punches while keeping his head unblocked, GSP's hands and his feet are quick enough to just mow right through him. And I could be wrong. I really hope that I'm wrong for the fact that I hope that it's just a 25-minute war. I hope somebody finishes somebody, but I just don't see Diaz having what it takes to really even threaten GSP. I think the only chance that Diaz has is catching him like Sarah did years ago. And that very well may happen. Like we always say, it's mixed martial arts. It's the greatest sport in the world, in my opinion, and this is why, because anything can happen. Just recently, like with Pettis and Guida, everybody thought Pettis was going to run through Guida. I personally predicted Guida to win by unanimous decision, which he did. He grinded out Pettis for 15 minutes. But, anything can happen. But I'm excited for the fight just to see kind of how Diaz does against him, but I personally think it's going to be a waste of time. Just because I think GSP is just going to mow through him. I'm not a nut hugger for GSP. I think he's one of the most boring fighters in mixed martial arts today, but he's one of the best, hands down. Because, I'm the type of guy where winning a fight is winning a fight. You know what I mean? Like you have a lot of fans saying, "Oh, I want him to stand up and bang." Where in reality, he's the champion, and he doesn't have to. You come beat me. I'm the best 170-pounder in the world. Figure out a way. I'm not here to beat you. You're here to beat me. Kind of, a mindset. And I think that's where his mindset is. And I think Nick Diaz.
I think that's where people get him. That's where they mistake him for a boring fighter, though. Okay, John Jones, he's a young guy, so he's going to go out there for his next few fights, depending on if he can get past either, I guess they've got him signed up to fight Rampage next.
Right, as long as they're medically cleared.
Exactly. So, okay, say he gets past Rampage, maybe for the next fight or so, maybe for the rest of this year, he may fight a little wild-like still, but eventually, if he continues to win, he's going to get to a point where GSP's at, and he's going to figure it out. I'm the champion. They have to beat me. I don't have to do anything. I can stay home. I can call in sick and remain the champion. They have to beat me. And I know it's not a good mindset to have, but at the same time, it's so true. Georges St. Pierre is the best at 170 in the world. There's not one 170-pounder I can think of right now, off the top of my head, that I think would even stand a chance. Do I want to see this fight happen with him and Diaz? Yeah, I do. More than anything, really. I love this fight. I can't wait for it. And the biggest reason is because I think that all the trash talk that Diaz is going to talk, all the things he's going to say, when he gets into the cage, I think he's going to open a beast that we haven't seen in Georges St. Pierre for a long time. And I think that's going to be the downfall of Nick Diaz. Is St. Pierre's going to be like, you know what, dude, I've had enough of your crap. I've had enough of you talking about Canadians, because Nick's going to throw stuff like that in there.
Oh, yes, he is.
Then St. Pierre's going to go in there, and he's going to beat his skull in, and I think that, it's going to be, it's going to be a fight like that, and that's why I like this fight. I want to see St. Pierre not be just the champion, but I want to see him going back to being a fighter as well.
Right, because he is. He really is a fighter. He's that good. He really is that good. He's such a scientific. He's a perfectionist, and
he's a freak of nature, man.
Oh my goodness! I don't throw the word perfect around too often, but GSP is perfect. He's a perfect fighter.
It would be hard for the only thing that people have that they can say bad about St. Pierre is they can just sit there and say that he's boring. But so is Lennox Lewis, and he's one of the greatest heavyweight boxing champions of all time. Lennox Lewis was nothing spectacular in the ring. He threw 500 jabs at you, but he hit you with 475 of them.
Right.
That's what St. Pierre does.
Right. Absolutely. Just just like the Koscheck fight. Now, Koscheck, on the Ultimate Fighter, personally, I would have liked to have seen GSP and Diaz as the coaches. That's what I was really hoping for, and I think a lot of people were hoping for that. And I would have loved to have seen the trash talk that Nick Diaz does. Now, I love every aspect of it. There's some people that kind of cross the line, just a little bit with their trash talking, but I enjoy it. I think it builds a fight. I think it creates excitement. And Koscheck talked a lot of shit to GSP, and GSP didn't say anything because he's not a real big trash talker. He just kind of does what he does in the cage, and he just proves that he's the best. But he literally jabbed Josh Koscheck for 25 minutes. I mean, that's what he did. I think Koscheck took him down once, maybe. I think he took him down one time, and then he literally just jabbed him in the eye for 25 minutes. And that kind of, I wish GSP would have brought a little more out against Koscheck, but that just kind of proves the point of what you said, is that I think Koscheck brought a little bit of aggression out of GSP by his trash talking, but GSP quite didn't go for the finish. But I think Diaz will create such controversy as far as talking leading up to the fight that GSP will want to finish that fight. And I think he's going to finish that fight. That's what I keep telling a lot of people. I think the Diaz and GSP fight gets finished basically for the fact of the matter is that Diaz won't let GSP not finish the fight. I don't think Diaz cares whether he gets knocked out or not. I think he just wants to fight. And I think he's going to charge him, and I think he's going to keep swinging on him. And then GSP is eventually going to say, okay, well, I'm going to finish the fight. So I think on both aspects, I am pumped for the fight too, but I just think that GSP runs through him. And that's just kind of my opinion on the fact of the matter.